The Starship Venture cruised through the outer rim of the Epsilon sector, its hull silent against the void of space. Inside, Captain Eli Mars surveyed the star map with his second-in-command, Lieutenant Harlan Finch. "Are you sure this is the right planet?" Finch asked, peering over Mars's shoulder at the holographic display. "It matches the ancient charts recovered from the Maresian archive," Mars replied, zooming in on a greenish-blue orb. "If the legends hold any truth, we might have found a new energy source." The crew of the Venture prepared for descent. As the ship pierced the planet's atmosphere, the surface revealed itself, vast oceans interspersed with dark continents and archipelagos. "Looks like we're not the first visitors," noted Finch, pointing to several structures near a large body of water. Mars nodded. "Prepare for landing near those coordinates, and notify Dr. Rice. He'll want to see this firsthand." The ship landed with a soft thud near the edge of the water body. Mars, Finch, Dr. Eric Rice, and a small security team disembarked, their boots sinking slightly into the wet sand. "Water samples first," Dr. Rice instructed, heading towards the shoreline. He knelt, collecting the liquid into vials. His scanner hummed as it analyzed the contents. "This isn't just water," Dr. Rice muttered, eyes widening as he read the results. "It's rich in an unknown compound, extremely energetic." "Could it be stable enough for fuel?" Mars asked, watching the scientist work. "Possibly, but I need to run more detailed tests back at the lab," replied Dr. Rice. "There's potential here, not just for energy, but maybe even more." As they explored further, Finch pointed to the alien structures. "Those buildings aren't just ruins. They look recently used." "Let's take a look inside," Mars suggested, leading the way. The team approached cautiously, weapons ready. The architecture was unlike anything human, with smooth, flowing lines and surfaces that shimmered with an iridescent sheen. Inside, they found a large chamber with a pool of the same liquid they had found at the shore. Devices and instruments lined the walls, though their purpose was unclear. "This was a research station," Dr. Rice observed, examining a console with active displays. "And look here," he tapped on the screen, which showed a molecular structure diagram. They were studying the liquid extensively. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Alarms blared from Finch's device. "We've got company!" Finch shouted, as a group of armed aliens emerged from a hidden door. The humans quickly raised their weapons. Mars stepped forward, his hand raised in peace. "We're not here to fight. We came for research." The alien leader, weapon still aimed, spoke in a harsh, clicking language. After a tense moment, Finch, who had studied various alien communications, attempted to reply in the alien's tongue. His words were broken but sincere. The leader hesitated, then lowered his weapon slightly. "You speak our tongue poorly, but peace is understood." Mars and Finch lowered their weapons as well, signaling to the others to do the same. "We seek only knowledge and understanding," Mars explained, his voice steady. "Many have come to steal the Heartwater," the alien replied, gesturing to the pool. "It powers, it destroys." "We have no desire to destroy," Finch added. "Help us understand, and we can help each other." The alien leader nodded slowly. "Perhaps, but trust is earned, not given." As they began a cautious dialogue, Mars felt the weight of potential on his shoulders, not just for a new energy source, but for a relationship that might bridge human and alien divides. Back at the ship, as they prepared samples for return, Mars couldn't help but think they were on the brink of something revolutionary. The universe was vast, and they had just scratched the surface of its mysteries. The Venture's conference room was tense, the air thick as Captain Eli Mars, Lieutenant Harlan Finch, and Dr. Eric Rice prepared to present their findings to the Galactic Council via a secure communication link. The room's large screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figures of various alien ambassadors, each representing their respective civilizations. Ambassador Threll, a tall, thin being with translucent skin, spoke first. "Captain Mars, we are aware of your expedition's discovery. You must understand the gravity of handling such a substance as hydro. The Council has strict regulations against its extraction and use." Mars nodded respectfully. "Ambassador, we understand your concerns. However, our initial assessments suggest that with proper management, Hydro could solve many energy crises across human territories without the adverse effects feared. Dr. Rice chimed in, showcasing charts and molecular data on the screen. Our tests indicate that hydro is unlike any element we've encountered. Its potential as a sustainable energy source is immense. Ambassador Lix from the Chiron sector interrupted, her voice stern. Your potential has been the downfall of many. Hydro is banned for a reason. Its properties are not just energetic, but highly volatile. Previous civilizations that tried to harness it faced catastrophic consequences. Finch stood up, trying to ease the rising tension. We're not proposing widespread use without oversight. We suggest a controlled study under the Council's supervision. Let us prove its safety and benefits. The screen split as another ambassador, Yorul of the Tarn, joined the conversation. His deep voice resonated. And what of the indigenous population on the planet? The last report suggests they are wary of outsiders due to past conflicts. How do you intend to manage relations with them? Mars responded, We've initiated peaceful contact and hope to establish a cooperative relationship. We believe that with the right approach, we can ensure a mutual benefit from any research endeavors. The discussion went back and forth, with several ambassadors voicing their concerns about the potential for weaponization of hydro, the environmental impacts, and the ethical implications of exploiting another world's resources. After much debate, Ambassador Threll concluded, The Council needs to deliberate further on this matter. Captain Mars, your team is to cease all hydro extraction activities immediately. Submit your full research findings and await further instructions. The communication ended abruptly, leaving the team in silence. Mars looked at his colleagues, determination setting into his features. We comply for now. But let's prepare our detailed report. We need to convince them not just of hydro's potential, but of our ability to manage it responsibly. Finch nodded in agreement. I'll start pulling together all the data and testimonies from the indigenous contacts. If we can show a united front, it might help our case. Dr. Rice added, And I'll continue with the lab analysis. Maybe there's something we missed that could further prove hydro's stability under controlled conditions. As the team dispersed to their tasks, Mars stayed behind, staring at the now dark screen. The weight of the opportunity was clear, as was the challenge. They had to tread carefully, balancing their scientific curiosity with diplomatic finesse and a deep respect for the broader implications of their work. In his quarters later, Mars penned notes for an upcoming report, focusing on strategic diplomacy and sustainable exploration methods. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with more than just scientific hurdles, but the promise of a better future for humanity was a strong motivator. The dim red lights of the Venture's alert system cast an ominous glow throughout the ship as Captain Eli Mars and his crew scrambled to their battle stations. The ship had detected incoming vessels, fast approaching their location on the uncharted planet. Status report, Mars barked as he entered the bridge, where Lieutenant Harlan Finch was already coordinating the defense. Multiple bogies closing in, Captain, Finch reported, his fingers flying over the control panel. They're Krylocks fighters, heavily armed. Dr. Eric Rice joined them on the bridge, concern etched on his face. All our hydro samples. Are they secure? Mars nodded to Finch, who responded, Secured and shielded, but if they board, we're not going to let that happen, Mars interjected firmly. He turned to his communications officer. Send a distress signal to the nearest human outpost, then patch me through to the Krylocks ships. The communication line crackled to life, and Mars's voice boomed through. Krylocks vessels, this is Captain Eli Mars of the human starship Venture. We are on a peaceful mission. I repeat, we are not hostile. The reply was a harsh static. Then a clipped alien voice countered. Your presence is an act of war. Surrender your vessel and all hydro resources. Finch looked at Mars, shaking his head slightly. They're not here to negotiate, Eli. Looks like it, Mars acknowledged. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Eric, you'd better get back to the lab. Lock everything down. As Dr. Rice hurried off, Mars and Finch strategized their limited options. The Venture was a research vessel, ill-equipped for intense combat. Harlan, bring us close to the planet's ring system. We might lose them in the debris, Mars suggested. Risky, but it's better than sitting ducks, Finch agreed, piloting the ship towards the dense rings. As asteroids and debris pelted the shields, the Krylocks fighters pursued relentlessly. The Venture shuddered under a barrage of enemy fire. "We've got hull breaches in sectors 7 and 9, yelled a crew member from his station. "Seal them off," Mars commanded. "Divert power to aft shields." Navigating through the chaos, Finch managed to clip one of the Krylocks ships with a well-timed maneuver, sending it spiraling into a larger asteroid. Cheers broke out on the bridge, but the victory was short-lived as more fighters joined the fray. "Captain, we can't outrun them," Finch exclaimed, desperation creeping into his voice. Mars gritted his teeth, eyes darting across the tactical display. "Prepare to turn and engage. If we're going down, we'll go down fighting." Just as Mars was about to give the order, a new signal beeped. Finch perked up. "Reinforcements. 2 human cruisers responding to our distress call. Get them on the line now," Mars commanded. A gruff voice answered the call. "This is Commander Riker of the USS Sentinel. Hang tight, Venture. We're coming in hot." With the arrival of the human cruisers, the tide of the battle shifted. The Krylocks, realizing they were now outgunned, began to retreat. Finch let out a long, relieved sigh. That was too close. Mars nodded, his gaze still fixed on the retreating enemy. "I want damage reports and casualty lists within the hour. We need to understand exactly what just happened." As the crew busied themselves with post-battle procedures, Mars and Finch reviewed the security footage to assess the Krylocks' tactics and prepare for any future encounters. "Eli, we need to get ahead of this," Finch said thoughtfully. "If they come at us this hard for just samples, imagine what they'd do if we started full-scale mining." Mars nodded, deep in thought. "We'll need to strengthen our defenses, maybe even reconsider our position here. But one thing's for sure. We can't let Hydro fall into the wrong hands." Together, they began planning their next steps, aware that the real battle for Hydro was just beginning. In the aftermath of the raid, Captain Eli Mars, Lieutenant Harlan Finch, and Dr. Eric Rice gathered in the Venture's medical bay, where injured crew members were being treated. The dimly lit room buzzed with the sound of medical equipment and low, urgent conversations among the medical team. "Captain, Lieutenant, I've discovered something extraordinary about the Hydro," Dr. Rice began, his voice filled with a mix of excitement and seriousness. He led them to a secluded corner of the bay, away from prying ears. "What is it, Eric?" Mars asked, his interest piqued despite the exhaustion written across his face. "It's about the Hydro's interaction with human physiology. We had a lab accident right before the attack." Rice paused, ensuring no one else could hear. "One of our technicians was exposed to a diluted solution of Hydro. Instead of the severe symptoms we anticipated, he exhibited enhanced cognitive and physical abilities temporarily." Finch looked skeptical. "Are you suggesting what I think you are?" Dr. Rice nodded. "Exactly. With proper modulation, Hydro could potentially be used not just as a fuel, but as an enhancer for human capabilities." Mars considered this, his mind racing with the implications. "Eric, prepare a detailed report. We need to understand the potential risks and how to control the effects safely." "I will, Captain. There's more testing to do, but the initial findings are promising," Rice assured him. Mars turned to Finch. "Harlan, assemble a small team. We need to secure more Hydro samples, but this time, under maximum security protocols." Finch nodded and left to organize the mission. Mars followed Dr. Rice to his lab, where they found the technician who had been exposed to the Hydro, now fully recovered and under observation. "How do you feel?" Mars asked the technician, who looked surprisingly well. "Better than ever, sir. It was like everything was sharper, clearer," the technician replied, his eyes wide with the memory of the experience. "Eric, start synthesizing a controlled dose. We need to see if we can replicate these effects consistently," Mars instructed, turning back to Rice. As they prepared for the new phase of Hydro experimentation, Finch returned with a security team, ready to depart for the collection site. "Everything's set, Eli. We'll be as discreet as possible," Finch assured him. "Good. Keep communications open. I want updates every hour," Mars said, clapping Finch on the shoulder as the team moved out. Meanwhile, Mars and Dr. Rice oversaw the controlled administration of the synthesized hydro on a volunteer from the security team. They monitored the volunteer's vitals and abilities through a series of tests. The results were astonishing. The volunteer demonstrated improved reflexes, strength, and problem-solving skills. "This is groundbreaking, Eric," Mars said, watching the volunteer complete a complex puzzle in record time. "But we must tread carefully. Such power can be dangerous if not handled correctly." "Agreed, Captain. I suggest we develop a protocol for its use, including potential medical applications and safety measures," Dr. Rice recommended. Mars nodded in agreement. "Do it, and keep this under wraps for now. We can't risk this information getting out before we fully understand it." As Finch and his team securely collected more samples, Mars and Dr. Rice began drafting a detailed plan for controlled human trials of hydro, considering not only the enhancement of physical and cognitive abilities, but also potential therapeutic uses. The chapter closed with Mars looking out the viewport at the stars, pondering the vast potential of their discovery. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with moral and ethical decisions, but for now, they had a new hope for advancing humanity's capabilities, and perhaps even more importantly, for healing and strengthening their people. Back aboard the Venture, Captain Eli Mars convened an emergency meeting with his top officers, including Lieutenant Harlan Finch and Dr. Eric Rice, in the strategy room. The room buzzed with the quiet intensity of impending decisions. "We've been successful in synthesizing hydro in a controlled environment, and the enhancements it provides could change the course of human capabilities," Mars began, his tone serious yet hopeful. "However, we need to discuss the broader implications of deploying hydro-enhanced soldiers." Finch, ever the tactician, leaned forward. "It's a significant edge, Eli. Given the tensions with the Krylocks, having an augmented defense force could deter further aggression." Dr. Rice interjected, "While the physical and cognitive boosts are impressive, we're still in the early stages of understanding the long-term effects. Any wide-scale deployment is risky." Mars nodded thoughtfully. "I understand the risks, Eric, but our situation demands action. We'll start with a small unit for trial operations. I need volunteers, those who understand the risks fully and are willing to participate." As plans were set into motion, Mars personally briefed the selected volunteers, ensuring they understood the potential dangers and the importance of their mission. The team was equipped and underwent the hydro enhancement process under Dr. Rice's careful supervision. The initial results were beyond encouraging. Enhanced reflexes, increased strength, and heightened cognitive functions were evident, giving the human forces a newfound prowess. Finch organized a series of mock drills and exercises to test the capabilities and limitations of the enhanced soldiers. During one such exercise, an unexpected alert came through. Krylocks forces had been spotted near a strategic outpost. Mars made the decision to deploy the newly enhanced team, hoping their abilities would lead to a quick and decisive victory, thereby avoiding a drawn-out conflict. As the team engaged, it became clear that the enhancements gave them a superior advantage. The Krylocks were caught off guard, their usual tactics ineffective against the speed and strategic thinking of the Hydro soldiers. The skirmish ended quickly, with minimal human casualties and significant losses on the Krylocks side. However, the victory was short-lived. Surveillance drones captured images of Krylocks forces capturing one of the enhanced soldiers who had been isolated from his unit during the retreat. "This changes everything," Mars stated grimly as he viewed the footage with Finch and Dr. Rice. "They'll dissect him, learn everything they can about Hydro, and possibly replicate the enhancements." Finch slammed his fist on the table, frustration evident in his voice. "We need to mount a rescue operation immediately. If they extract what they learn from him, our edge could turn into our greatest threat." Mars agreed. "Prepare for a rescue mission. Use every available resource. We can't let them turn our own strategy against us." As Finch coordinated with the tactical teams, Dr. Rice pulled Mars aside. "Eli, if the Krylocks manage to reverse engineer Hydro, we could be facing enhanced enemies. We need a contingency plan." Mars, his expression hardened with resolve, nodded. "Work on an inhibitor, something that could counteract the Hydro effects. We need to be prepared for the worst. The chapter concluded with Mars overseeing the preparation of the rescue team, his mind racing with the potential consequences of their actions. The hydro-enhanced soldiers represented a significant leap forward for humanity, but now they faced the real possibility of their greatest asset being turned against them. The stakes were higher than ever, and Mars felt the heavy burden of his command more acutely than before. The dim glow of the command center aboard the Venture cast long shadows over Captain Eli Mars and his team as they finalized their rescue operation. Lieutenant Harlan Finch, alongside Dr. Eric Rice and Commander Tyrell, a special ops leader, huddled around the holographic map displaying the Krylocks' homeworld. Intel places our man in a high-security compound here. Tyrell pointed at a fortified structure on the map, heavily guarded, likely underground. We'll need to be quick and silent to get in and out without a massive engagement. Mars, his jaw set firmly, responded, "Speed and stealth, then. Tyrell, your team ready for this?" "Always, Captain," Tyrell replied, confidence in his tone. "We'll drop at the dark side of the moon using low radar shuttles. From there, we approach using the terrain to our advantage." Finch chimed in, reviewing their approach strategy. "I've arranged for a diversion. A small fleet will feign an attack on their outer defenses, draw their forces out. Should give you a window." "Good. Dr. Rice, what's the status on the inhibitor you've been working on?" Mars asked, turning to the scientist. Rice adjusted his glasses, looking slightly uneasy. "It's experimental, but we've seen promising results in simulations. It should incapacitate any Krylocks who've been enhanced with hydro, at least temporarily." Mars nodded, approving the distribution of the inhibitor among Tyrell's team. "Equip your men with it. Non-lethal takedowns only. We're not there to start a war." The team moved swiftly to execute their plan. As the diversionary fleet initiated their feint attack, Tyrell and his squad, cloaked by the darkness of the moon, advanced towards the Krylocks compound. Communications were kept to a whisper as they infiltrated the enemy territory. The Krylocks, distracted by the outer skirmishes, scrambled to mobilize their forces, leaving the path to the compound less guarded than usual. "Checkpoint ahead," Tyrell whispered into his comm, gesturing towards a guard post. Using the hydro inhibitor, they took down the guard silently, their bodies crumpling without a sound. Inside the compound, the team navigated through dimly lit corridors, guided by Mars's real-time commands from orbit. "You're approaching the detention level. According to our intel, he's in cell block D12. As they reached the detention area, the challenge escalated. Krylocks guards, some showing signs of hydro enhancement, patrolled heavily. Tyrell deployed the inhibitor through the air vents, watching as the guards slowly lost their enhanced vigor, becoming disoriented. Taking advantage of the confusion, the team breached the cell block, swiftly incapacitating any remaining guards. They located the captured soldier, weak but alive. "Got him, Captain," Tyrell confirmed over the comm as they began their extraction. The return was fraught with peril as Krylocks reinforcements converged on their location. Tyrell's team fought a rearguard action, holding off the Krylocks while making their strategic retreat back to the moon's dark side. As they loaded into the shuttles, Mars breathed a sigh of relief. "Well done, Tyrell. Get out of there. We'll cover your exit." Orbiting cruisers laid down suppressive fire, ensuring Tyrell's shuttles could leave the Krylocks moon unscathed. The Venture welcomed them back, the crew bustling to attend to the rescued soldier and debrief. Back aboard, Mars met Tyrell and his team in the debriefing room. "Your actions today have not only saved a man but possibly given us the edge we need to defend ourselves going forward. Well done." Tyrell nodded, his face grim yet satisfied. "Thank you, sir. It was a team effort." As the team dispersed, Mars remained behind, contemplating their next move. With the Krylocks possibly aware of the Hydro's potential on humans, the stakes had changed. Mars knew that they needed to prepare for a possible counterstrike, and perhaps more importantly, to secure and control all Hydro resources to prevent further escalation. He summoned Finch and Rice for an urgent strategy session. "We need to be proactive. Let's talk defenses, and maybe a bit of diplomacy. It's time to keep our friends close and our enemies at a respectful distance." In the strategic meeting room aboard the Venture, Captain Eli Mars, Lieutenant Harlan Finch, and Dr. Eric Rice were joined by Commander Tyrell, fresh from the successful rescue mission. The air was charged with the urgency of their situation as they faced the imminent threat of a Krylocks counterstrike. Reports indicate a massive buildup of Krylocks forces near our sector. They're not taking the rescue lightly, Finch reported, projecting tactical simulations onto the screen. They're preparing for a full-scale assault. Mars furrowed his brows, considering their limited options. Tyrell, how quickly can we mobilize our forces? We can have our fleet battle-ready within the hour, but, sir, our numbers are thin. We'll be outgunned, Tyrell replied, his tone grim but determined. Dr. Rice interjected, I've been working on an enhancement to the hydro inhibitor. If we can deploy it on a larger scale, we might be able to weaken their forces systematically. Give us a fighting chance. Mars nodded. Do it. Prepare the inhibitor for wide dispersal. Tyrell, coordinate with the fleet. Use every strategy at your disposal to prolong engagement until the inhibitor is ready. As the Krylocks fleet approached, a palpable tension settled over the venture. Mars and his command crew took their positions, coordinating the fleet's movements and preparing for the battle. Initiate evasive maneuvers, keep them off balance and unable to form a cohesive attack, Mars ordered, his voice calm yet authoritative. Finch, managing the tactical display, updated in real time. Incoming fire from Krylocks dreadnoughts, sir. Mars watched as their ships narrowly dodged devastating blasts. Tyrell, status on the inhibitor deployment? Charges are set, Captain, on your command, Tyrell responded, ready at the deployment console. Mars gave a curt nod. Deploy now. Let's hope this works. As the inhibitor charges were released into the space surrounding the Krylocks fleet, a tense silence fell upon the venture. Slowly, signs emerged of their effectiveness. The Krylocks ships began to falter, their movements sluggish, weapons firing sporadically. It's working, Dr. Rice exclaimed, monitoring the effects from his lab. Their enhanced soldiers are losing strength. Their ship functions are degrading. Press the attack. All ships, full forward, Mars commanded, seizing the momentary advantage. The human fleet rallied, pushing forward with renewed vigor. The battle turned as Krylocks ships, overwhelmed by the sudden human onslaught and crippled by the inhibitor, started to retreat. Mars, watching the tide turn, allowed himself a moment of cautious relief. Maintain pressure. Keep them on the run. The human fleet pursued the Krylocks, disabling several of their ships and capturing a few. The victory was clear, but not without cost, as reports of casualties and significant damage to several human ships came in. After the battle, Mars convened with Finch, Tyrell, and Dr. Rice to assess their position and plan their next moves. We've won this battle, but the war is far from over, Mars started, his tone sober. We need to secure our defenses and ensure the Krylocks can't mount another attack. Finch nodded in agreement. I'll coordinate with the fleet to start repairs and reinforce our positions. We should also consider reaching out to other human colonies for support. Dr. Rice added, I'll continue refining the hydro inhibitor. There might be more ways we can use it against the Krylocks if they come at us again. Tyrell, looking over the combat data, suggested, we should also interrogate the prisoners. They could provide valuable intel on Krylocks' capabilities and future plans. Mars approved the measures, feeling the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders. Good work, everyone. Let's keep our momentum. This is our chance to ensure the safety of humanity's frontier. As the crew dispersed to carry out their tasks, Mars stayed back, looking out at the stars. The victory had given them a respite, but he knew the Krylocks would not be deterred for long. The future was uncertain, and the path to peace was fraught with peril. But for now, they had secured a chance to fight another day, and that was what mattered. In the aftermath of the victorious yet costly battle, the Venture's command center was a hub of activity and strategic planning. Captain Eli Mars, flanked by Lieutenant Harlan Finch and Commander Tyrell, addressed a gathering of the fleet's captains and top officials via a secure communication network. Thanks to your bravery and quick thinking, we've pushed back the Krylocks threat, but this is just the beginning, Mars began, his voice steady and commanding. We must use this time wisely to fortify our defenses and prepare for any future conflicts. Finch, handling the tactical overlays, displayed the current status of their defenses and the areas needing reinforcement. "We're setting up surveillance outposts here and here," he pointed to strategic points on the map. "These will give us early warning of any Krylocks movements toward our sectors." Commander Tyrell chimed in with a report on the ground forces. "The enhanced soldiers performed well, but we need to ensure their well-being. Continuous monitoring and further training will be implemented immediately." Mars nodded in agreement before turning the discussion to Dr. Eric Rice, who joined the meeting remotely from his lab. "Dr. Rice, what can you tell us about the ongoing developments with Hydro?" Dr. Rice adjusted his glasses, his face serious. "We're making progress in harnessing Hydro's capabilities not just for military enhancement, but also for medical and energy applications. However, we must proceed with caution to avoid the pitfalls that the Krylocks warned us about. The Council is also concerned about the ethical implications of using Hydro," Mars added, acknowledging the broader political landscape. "We will need to draft clear guidelines and oversight mechanisms to ensure that our use of Hydro is responsible and transparent." As the meeting drew to a close, Mars outlined the next steps. "I want weekly updates from each division. Our readiness depends on staying connected and informed. Remember, the peace we've won is fragile, and it's our duty to protect it." The crew disbanded, each member focused on their respective tasks, while Mars and Finch lingered in the command center, reviewing the reports of the newly established surveillance outposts. "Harlan, I want you to personally oversee the training of our next batch of recruits," Mars instructed. "Ensure they understand what's at stake." Finch nodded solemnly. "Understood, Captain. I'll make sure they're more than ready." In the following weeks, the Venture spearheaded the construction of defensive structures and the development of advanced technology to better utilize Hydro. The human territories began to see a time of unprecedented unity and technological advancement. One evening, as Mars stood gazing out at the stars from the observation deck, Finch joined him, a rare moment of quiet between the two. "It's a new era for us, isn't it?" Finch asked, his voice thoughtful. Mars turned, his eyes reflecting a mix of hope and determination. "Yes, it is. We've shown that humanity can not only survive but thrive, even in the face of immense challenges." "And the Hydro?" Finch queried, looking for reassurance. Mars paused before responding. "It's a powerful tool, one that could either save or destroy us. It's our responsibility to ensure it's the former." As the stars twinkled silently above, the weight of their responsibilities loomed large, yet there was a sense of cautious optimism. Humanity now stood on the brink of a new frontier, equipped with incredible new technologies and a renewed sense of unity. The Venture continued to patrol the human territories, a guardian of the fragile peace they had fought so hard to achieve. Mars and his crew were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the knowledge and tools to face them head-on. As Mars turned back to the view, the vastness of space seemed a little less daunting. For now, humanity had secured its place among the stars, not just as survivors, but as pioneers of a new era.